So this question was so good from the webinar that I thought, let me just record a video and I'll use it as one of our frequently asked questions for our channel, but then also to keep the conversation going. So how would we introduce students to using AI in a math classroom? Student use. Is there a way to practice AI investigation that keeps kids interested, curious, yet still working on developing their own problem-solving skills? Students are so accustomed to immediate feedback response, it makes the lesson of value struggle tough to teach. I will actually start answering your question by the last part of what you said, which is that students are so used to immediate feedback. That is part of the problem we have to battle seriously, and it's not easy because even the social psychologist Jonathan Haidt recently just said that we need to stop making everything gamified learning. That's what he said. We need to stop making everything gamified learning. We need people to learn to struggle. We need people to learn how to battle through difficult things. And that's where my concern lies with this. So number one is we're dealing with a cultural backdrop. I mean, technology keeps getting easier to the point where you don't even have to, if you want to wash your hands now, everything's automatic, right? So they're faced with a culture that is making life so easy. How do we teach them difficult things or things that take time? And I tell students sometimes, I joke with them, but I'm also serious. I'm saying, if you keep using AI and all these tools, recognize that human beings are not AI, and therefore don't expect them to change overnight. So when you get married, make sure you're patient and kind and loving to your spouse, right? These are things that we're going to have to start teaching because everybody's so used to everything being instant. And so that's that. So that's my response to that last part of the question. Is that we understand there's a cultural challenge before us. So then how do we teach students to use AI? Well, I think that using generative AI is a great place to start. But before we teach them to use AI, we need to teach them the importance of the framework. Like, so for example, I use the counting to calculus framework, which means that I want every student to go from counting to calculus and to be able to do every problem without AI. At least initially, they should be able to solve it by hand on a piece of paper. Eventually, I mean, of course, what will happen then is when they know there's a framework they're operating in, then what we can do is we can begin to give them, like let's say I've mastered factoring polynomials. Well, I can use AI to prompt more questions on factoring polynomials for the sake of filling my notebook with all the solutions I need, right? So what I'm saying is we still need to teach them with examples and show them and guide them, and we can use whatever tools we need to do that. Ideally, just teaching and inspiring them with stories. But then we can take that topic and tell them, hey, look up the history of polynomials. Oh, did you see that Leonard Euler came up with that? Now the child is beginning to see some more information, but they now have to fit it back into the framework. So what I'm trying to avoid is what happened with Google. What happened with Google and even with Khan Academy, honestly, is that there's just a lot of information. It's all there. There's just so much information. But the issue now becomes, what do I do with all this information? Can I section it into nice categories? That's where teachers need to get ahead of the students. So I think they can use AI, but they should be using AI within a framework, and then they can make connections within that framework. Otherwise, they can be prompting AI all day and go home and just throw away that knowledge and not put it anywhere. So we need to build a framework, which is what, counting to calculus is trying to do. Then we need to give students the opportunity to operate within that framework. Then we need those students to make connections of all the different aspects within that framework. Then we use AI to learn the history of any of those concepts within that framework. So what that means is that imagine if your child goes home on the weekend and looks up what is the relationship between polynomials and exponential functions. Like, that's not in the textbook. That doesn't exist, right? Now they're using AI to discover something that the AI can make, like can put together. And that's because the AI, using linear algebra, has all these data points that it can mix up and synthesize. And people can look at it and go, well, that looks interesting. So now they're curious. Oh, what if I tried that? What if I tried that? What if I prompt the AI this way? So AI itself becomes a curiosity subject learning tool, right? But for mathematics learning, it has to be within a framework because, as I said, we've had Khan Academy. We've had all these tools for how many years? But students are still failing math all across America. So that tells us the problem is not the tools available. It's that they've not been taught how to package it and use it properly. And that's the challenge we have to win by using the framework approach I'm recommending. So the way I would introduce students to AI is, first of all, they learn the concept. Then I will tell them, hey, let's pull up AI and ask AI for 5 more examples on that concept. And then let's use AI to learn the history of that concept, because your textbook is not teaching it to you. Let's use AI to learn the applications of that concept. Let's use AI to make a visual diagram to better show the applications of that concept. Those are some of the ways we can use AI to help students learn. Is there a way to practice AI investigation that keeps kids interested, curious, yet still working on developing their own problem-solving skills? I think we need to tell them that you have a mind you can use, and you should develop that mind to the max. You should not be a consumer of AI alone, but you should be one who is also creating tools with AI, right? And also being able to recognize that if AI was not there, you can still reason and you can still process things and you can still think for yourself. And one way we can combat that is we need them to read good books. We need them to read the classics. Ultimately, of course, we need them to read their Bibles, but we need them to read the classics. And what I mean by that is one of the best ways to strengthen the mental faculties and to train our minds to know how to think and to do some heavy lifting is by reading the classics. AI will destroy regular education paradigms that don't do this. Because what's going to happen is that imagine a child goes to a school where they're not required to read books. They're not required to read cover to cover The Tale of Two Cities or The Great Expectations. And the children are just using AI to give them all the answers to everything. And there are schools, honestly, where the teachers don't care. And that's really sad. But if we keep doing that in these types of schools, the students are going to start asking, well, why am I coming to school when AI can just tell me everything I need to know? And that's where we say, well, if you come to a school that teaches from a liberal arts tradition and a classical education, you're going to learn to think deep. And you're going to know how to use AI better because you are thinking deep. But if we're not giving them tools to think deep, then why should anyone go to school anymore? That's really what it comes down to. Why should anyone go to school when AI is there? And my answer is we need mentoring, we need coaching, and we need to cultivate the mind, and we need to help people to flourish and be who God made them to be. That's the premise I would go on in using AI in education. Have a blessed day, and thanks for your question again. Bye.